Anna Olsen from the Center for Faculty Excellence, and I'm very excited to invite you to the third of 3 career development workshops that are part of this year's May faculty workshops. I think we have the wrong lights turned off. Or can you see this okay? I think it's going to get better on the second slide. I happens to always to also be the Fulbright liaison here at AU. So I have worked with several faculty in the past 2 years who have ended up winning Fulbrights, which is exciting. And so I want you to just be aware that you can reach out to me anytime if you're planning to apply for Fulbright. And also happy to connect you with Fulbright alumni here at AU, a few of which are here today to share their experience later. And just a few notes of what to expect from this session before we get started. So we have several different components. So the session is not just about Fulbright, obviously, but it's a dominant topic. It's also just in general about opportunities to take your research, your teaching, your work, your career abroad for a while. And there are many different ways in which you can do that. And one of the ways is something my colleague Tashina will talk about. She'll talk about some of AU's partnership programs abroad. I will share information about the Fulbright US Scholar Program for 2027, 2028, which is currently open for application. And then you'll hear from 3 of our Fulbright US Scholar alumni who have been in the program in the more or less recent past. And then we'll end up talking a little bit, we'll answer your questions, but also I'll share some more opportunities that we have lined up here at AU in terms of connecting and finding other ways to take your scholarship and your work outside of AU for periods of time. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Tashina, or I'll let you introduce yourself, and then you can take the next 15 minutes and this clicker.
Okay, here you go. So she transformed my Canva into PowerPoint, and I'm apologizing. Microsoft did it. All right, so yeah, my name is Tashina Giraud. I'm the Director of the International Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives for American University. And my office is in the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies, but I do a lot more than that. And that's why we're here. And we're going to talk first about why we partner, what we're talking about with partnerships. We partner with international institutions, well, for funding, right? Grants, scholarships. OSARA, we're working with OSARA right now to find more international sources of funding. We do it for our international reputation, which is very important if we know for rankings, but also in general just for our enrollment capacity. Again, to boost admissions, we have new programs for pathways and articulations, and also to internationalize our curriculum, okay? And it's, I think, generally why we partner as a university. We do it for these reasons. And so the role of the faculty in this really can be different. So here I have Mike Merce from CAS talking in front of the Senate in the middle of Columbia on gender economics, actually, which she did a Fulbright and then keeps going back now and does a lot of wonderful things. But you can be an ambassador for us. You can be helping out with admissions, we'll get back to that, doing articulations, the behind the work, being a curriculum innovator, research, clearly, and just also helping AU broaden its network of influence. And why it's beneficial to you, okay? This is gonna seem very obvious. Well, full programs equal full faculty lines, right? You want your programs, people to be in the classroom, to have new research opportunities for funding as well, bringing diversity into the classroom and maybe even into your research, and providing opportunities for less represented populations, okay, through some of our partnerships. Professional development, because if you've never really done a lot of international research, if you've never had that opportunity to collaborate with an international university, it could be great. If you want to end up going on a fellowship, an exchange, a training, those are also great. Right now, we actually have Carolyn Parker from SOE who is doing a Fulbright specialist trip to Costa Rica, where she's working for the Ministry of Education, helping them integrate STEM into their K-12 education. So she's taking her knowledge base, her research focus, and she's actually going and applying it for a country on behalf of Fulbright as a specialist. And so that's even beyond scholar. But it also allows you to build your international network. I also talk a little bit about, when I go back to building your network and your professional development, I will not say who, but I was approached by a faculty member who has a European nationality and said, you know what, I don't have any connections really anymore in Europe, and I'm thinking in a couple of years to transition with my family back there. What can we do? How can we start working together? And so that's the type of time where I can also potentially assist you. And for that person, actually, we're able to find a research, like one of our partner institutions who has similar research interests. And so we're going to build out some research projects for her. But the things that, like, we have over 200 international partners at AU. We have them across the planet. And if we don't have them and you need them, they're pretty easy to get, which is something a lot of faculty do not realize, that there are resources here at AU for them if they do want to do international activities. I'm going to take a pause on this part, because this is the part in the program, to emphasize and explain something that we've brought to AU very recently, which are international partnership programs. Okay? They're different kinds. There's a progression agreement. For example, you do your bachelor's degree at the home university in Japan, and you get facilitated admissions into the master's program with us. Guaranteed scholarships, waived application fees, rapid decision. It helps us assure that if we know they're coming from an excellent university and they're recommended by our partner, we know they're really good. It gives us another added layer of quality assurance for the international students. Research, of course. When we're looking at the programs for research, there's a lot of different opportunities. We know that the national funding has evolved, but Europe is extremely proactive, poaching our faculty, but also trying to create new fellowships. If you want to go to France, there's a new fellowship for faculty who want to go teach in France. And so there's a lot of opportunities also through the research program partnerships. The pathways, we have like 4+1. AU Sharjah, and in environmental science, actually, it was our first 4+1. They can start taking some graduate courses in Sharjah. We recognize those 9 credits, and they come and do 1 year with us, just like our own students, okay? So they come and take 21 credits. Those students would not have come without it. So it's not like you're just discounting your program or not filling your program. It's there are students who just will not say, okay, we can't afford 2 years in DC, the full program, et cetera. Here, by doing a 4+1, this is like 2+2+1 example, there's 3.5 plus 1.5. There's lots of different, or it depends on the home university. You're able to get it to about half the cost to the student with a discount rate per credit of only 20%. So per credit, you're still making actually more than what we discount for their full-time students. And the idea is that we can actually make it more affordable to populations who just cannot pay the $65,000 sticker price plus the $80,000 you have to have in the bank account, right? Like, it's trying to make it more accessible. But we're also partnering right now with governments on different types of activities and working to partner on actual funding for our students, because unfortunately our ranking isn't high enough. Today the foreign governments have decided that they were going to look at QS ranking and the Times Higher Ed to determine who gets money, and so this is one of the reasons why we have a lot less funded students today. But we're looking for the back door to those programs. Dual master's degree, 1+1. And it can go both ways. I'm working with SPA right now. Originally, we were thinking of a one-way program, but we're like, why not just make it both ways? If people actually want to go and do it, they have that option, and it's pay as you go on each side. So the idea, we assume that the Chinese partner, the more people will want to come from China than ours to China, but we're also opening that up to our students to make our own programs more attractive, because we need to attract students. We need to give them opportunities to maybe finish in a different country where they might want to start their career. Because just like here, we get OPT, in other countries we also have laws that allow you to stay in Europe and work in Europe for a certain amount of time post-graduation. So accelerated, and then joint programs. You know, we have one, it's with Ritsumeikan, with SIS. They're a lot more complicated. I try to avoid them, but they're really great. It's long-term opportunities. But we're also looking at right now as joint programming outside of the United States, exporting our expertise somewhere else. There are populations who can no longer come, no matter what we do. They're on a list. They're on the ban list. They won't be able to afford it anyway. Well, some could, but now no one can come. So how do we also bring our expertise to the local populations? By creating joint programs and partnership programs in the countries where we know that there is need and a demand. So how can faculty engage? You're like, okay, now how does that help you, or what can you do? Well, if you know, you want to know what you want to do, and you know who you want to work with. Say you have a research partner that you've been doing a lot of research with over the years, but you don't even know, maybe we are partners with them and you don't know with their university. But this actually is a good example, is in economics. Simon Shen, the head of the department, saying, I'm doing all this work with a former PhD student from AU who now works at Renmin University of China. Can we do something to partner with them? They brought the vice president of Renmin here. It was a big deal. We're in the middle of signing 2 dual degrees, and they potentially a Sino-American Institute, because that faculty relationship was strong. And his idea is to get, when I say dual degrees, those are the ones coming from China to the US, so to bring students into their program. And so we can, if you identify partners, and then we can, you reach out to the research colleagues, make an introduction, because often those kind of collaborations happen at the international office with senior international officers. So often the faculty will be like, okay, here we make this connection, and then they kind of hand me off to the person who I have to negotiate with, and then we bring in the faculty to do the articulations and all those fun things. Actually does not take that much time. Once you've done one, it goes pretty quick. You say you know what you want to do, but you don't really know who you want to do it with. You can also say, like, let's define what I want. I want to do a fellowship, a program, mobility, sponsored research, but you're not really sure how to go about doing it or who to do it with. Well, you can contact me if you'd like, all right? And we can look and see if we have any international partners that would be a good fit. And if we don't, we can go and identify the ones that should be a good fit. And I was gonna say hunt them down, but I go to conferences very regularly, and I've had examples where a certain faculty will say, we really would like this kind of a partnership for our program. And I'm at a conference with 10,000 participants from different universities. I go and target the people who could fulfill that request from that faculty member, okay? And hopefully that request will bring added value to AU in different ways. Teaching collaborations, COILs, research, program collaborations. There's a lot of really great ways to have international partnerships that are beneficial for you and for AU. And if needed, I can help define your project. We have a colleague who's actually not here, but at the last event that we did with Fulbright, who I wasn't complaining, but I was saying, I have an Uzbek partner who wants to receive one of our faculty for 4 weeks, and I can't find anybody in economics who wants to go. And Rob Kelly's like, I'll go. And so now we're defining the project with our partner. He also wants to do a Fulbright. At the same time, he's applying for a Fulbright for the scholar. So he's doing specialist and scholar at the same time. He's going to try to get there either way. But that will help us raise our visibility at the partner. We already have students coming through that partnership. We signed it a few weeks ago. And he's going to be able to raise our visibility and help us recruit, actually, while he's there. And at the same time, we made sure he found immediately the place he wanted to go, and they're building out his proposal together. So it's the kind of thing that we can do. I'm pretty working with, like in Uzbekistan, a good example, the State Department and the US Embassy often contacts me, like Kazakhstan, actually, State Department in Kazakhstan this week, just to say, where are you with a certain partnership that they really wanted? Saudi Arabia are actually alum that run that section for the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia. They're actually in DC right now, and so we had lunch last week, same things, like where are you in those partnerships with our colleagues in Saudi Arabia? And so we can help define a project, and it could be executive education, programs, research, whatever. Sometimes faculty say, I know what I want to do, I just don't know exactly how to make it happen. We can help you find out how to make it happen. And sometimes in your school, you have more resources. Some schools have different resources in terms of international partnerships and programs than others. And we can help you identify the right people in your school to assist as well. I work with every school. I do not have AU is my territory. I do graduate and undergraduate. So happy to be of assistance. And I don't know if anybody has any questions on all that fun stuff. But yeah, I love help faculty when they have a project or an idea, even if they want to go move to France. Yeah.
One clarification for those of you who don't know what a COIL is might be helpful because we also have a session on COILs yesterday. They're collaborative online international learning programs. And we're going to be doing a session tomorrow about that midday from 1:15 to 2:45.
Which means 2 faculty members in 2 countries with 2 groups of students who are co-teaching and co-learning. Just like, yeah, to define it. Meaning we have a really great one with our partner Diego Portales in Chile, where it's our, yeah, it's they're here. Oh, via Zoom, wonderful. They have we have Heritage Spanish and they have a marketing class and they work together on projects. Both have their learning outcomes, and it's a very successful, very well received course, and it's been a really great for the faculty involved in it. And AU actually has staff that support you in doing it. Actually in the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. And in CFE too. Oh, Lillian, all right. So yeah, and then you have Nicholas with us. And so you have these, course designers and engineers that can help you. It's a little bit of a lift the first time. Not that much, really, honestly. It can be very small. But it is very, very well regarded by students because not everybody can travel. And part of the global pledge is we're re-looking at international experience. Yes, we want as many to go out as possible. Graduate students are not very mobile. Okay, how do we allow them to have international experience even if they can't travel? And virtual mobility, COILs are one of those ways, actually. So, yep, it did reorganize the slide. It's all good. Yeah, that's my LinkedIn, that's my email. If you want anything, if you even just sit down, have a cup of coffee and kind of like, I have a vague idea of something I like to do, we can help define it and see what resources are here because there's a lot more than people realize. So yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Tashina. All right, so next, for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to be, oops, I think that was still there for you. Yes, so ignore, right. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about Fulbright U.S. scholars. So just really quickly, why talk about Fulbright as opposed to anything else? So really the reason we are trying to highlight this is it's a very large program with a lot of grants or awards. So actually nearly 800 every year in the U.S. AU actually has a really good track record as well. In addition to the 3 alumni sitting here today, we have, for example, 2 years ago, we were announced one of the top producers of Fulbright scholars in the United States. We had 6 Fulbrights. Then last year was a bit of a dip because of the cut in funding that discouraged applications. And now we're working really hard to get more applications in for the next round. So it's also, I think the breadth of the program, just to jump to point 3 here. So by the way, I've borrowed these slides from the Fulbright folks who were here presenting in March because it's about the same round of applications that we are in right now. So there are 380 unique awards. So some of them are duplicates, which is why there are 800 awards in total. But there are programs really to suit almost every academic discipline, interest, location, you name it. So really the first step is all about trying to find that one program that fits your needs the best. So why do we think Fulbrights might support your professional and career development, you might wonder? Because that might not be the first thing you think about as a reason for wanting to go abroad. Like, for example, my first reason would be food. I'm kidding, but no, I'm not really kidding. I would love a Fulbright in Italy. No, but it's essentially what you can do is you can take the work you do here at AU to a different country for up to a year. So you can actually not just do research, you can teach, you can do both. You can be a specialist, Fulbright specialist like Carolyn Parker. You can lead projects. And then what also usually happens, you build new and lasting connections, international connections in your field, which can prove really helpful when it comes to like publishing, finding collaborators, and so forth. And yeah, that's the next point really, of advancing your publishing network, developing your teaching as well, maybe teaching in a different language. That would be a fun challenge.
I've been translating Carolyn's PowerPoint into Spanish. AI tool, because she's actually doing it in Spanish. And
wow.
she's like, it was crazy. back and reteach again.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's an
great.
opportunity to
Yeah.
brush up.
That's great to know. So next time,
And
yeah.
you have an AI tool that will translate your PowerPoint directly into a different language, the same formatting.
Does it hallucinate?
It does not hallucinate.
Okay.
That's
Good to
what's
know.
crazy about it.
Yeah,
That's
it
what we
learns
love.
quickly. So to the fifth point here on the slide, it's a pretty big distinction to win a Fulbright, I would say. They're very competitive, so being able to put that on your CV as one of the things you have accomplished is a wonderful thing. It can go in your elements, potentially, your promotion file. And then you also become a member of a huge community of Fulbright Scholar alumni, not just here at AU, but nationwide. All right, so in terms of the support that you would receive just both during the application process and also while you're abroad. So the organization that administers Fulbright Scholar Awards here in the US, or this is where they come from, so period, who administers these awards, the Institute for International Education, or IIE, they support you in a lot of different ways. I think one of the main ones I want to highlight here are the office hours and the webinars that they provide. So for example, there was a webinar on the 7th, so last week, on finding the so-called hidden gems in terms of Fulbright Awards. So they actually help you identify the ones that are less competitive. Maybe something like the Uzbekistan one that you mentioned. And then you also will have in-country assistance in the country where you end up going. You can connect with past grantees. They'll basically help you connect with folks who might not be at AU but have been at the exact same location where you're applying to be. And if you've been admitted, to just talk to them about the next steps and like what to think about when you arrive there. And then there's also family support for those of you who have kids and families who you might want to take along. In fact, over half of all awards includes extra funding for dependents, and we have had several alumni present at previous events like this talking about bringing their kids abroad, and I mean, you can actually create multiple life-changing experiences by doing so. And it might seem scary, but I think it can be really rewarding, and yeah, we have several folks we can connect you with if you want to hear more about what that might be like. All right. So another network that I mentioned earlier, the Fulbright Liaisons. I think it's funny that they call them the local guides. Yes, exactly. I'm your local guide. So if you have questions about the application process, you can come to me. It is actually a community of Fulbright Liaisons that is connected between each other as well. So when the funding was cut last year, or 2 years ago now, we actually all connected to just stay informed and know like what's happening, when are things changing, and it's proven to be a really helpful network just from this standpoint. Okay, let's see. I need another hand here. Here we go. So, all right, so qualifications. So this is something that disappointed me deeply, but it made me decide to become a US citizen. Not just this, and I'm not quite there yet, but no, it is close to anyone who's not a US citizen, unfortunately, for those who are not. And then in terms of degree requirements, some awards require a PhD or a terminal degree, others don't. For example, also things like art, other areas might just require, they might require other kinds of experiences, professional experience, exhibits, things like that. You're actually allowed as a Fulbright Scholar alum to apply again. So I think we have somebody at you who've done 3, don't we? Or at least 2. We have several folks who've done 2 Fulbrights. Mika has done at least 2, yeah. And I think Pat Aufderheide has done 2 as well. She was supposed to be here today. She will be at a different event in the future. So, and then there's varying requirements just depending on what kind of award you're applying for. So if you're applying for a teaching award, you have to have teaching experience, which we all have here at AU anyway. We're professors. So now the application window for the current award competition is open since February, and it closes on September 15th. This is the reason we're doing this event today or now, this time of year, to give you the summer to get through this application. 2027, 28 sounds very far away, I know, but there, no, maybe not. It's not in the award world, or similar to the publishing world, things take time. And so the various things you can do. So you have, again, like more than 380 awards in more than 130 countries. The length of the awards can be between 2 and 12 months. I think there are some that are a little bit shorter even. You can also split the awards into several cycles. So if you don't have a sabbatical lined up, that might be something you can do. Just go in the summers, 3 summers in a row. And then again, there are very different activities that are defined. So some are research alone, some are teaching alone, some are a combination. Some are specific projects that you might be working on. And the ones that we are primarily focusing on in this session today are the Scholar Awards. We do have some distinguished scholars actually who were just announced. I think at least one at AU. Have you seen that? A law school professor who was given a distinguished scholar award. So basically, what the first step in all this is to choose the right award for you to apply for, because you can only apply for one at a time. So you can't just put in applications for 6 or 7 different ones. And there are probably, I mean, actually at one time somebody asked, why is that? And it didn't occur to me at the time, but the simple reason is they just can't read all the applications. So you have to pick one. And then it becomes really important to think about like what you're really looking for, what your goals are. In terms of spending a year, up to a year, away from AU and abroad. Yeah.
So when Fulbright came to give the last little session, they said that if you can hook it to a partnership, it really strengthens your application, because those are the questions they ask is, how is this relevant to your employer, to American University? How is it going to move forward American University's interests as well? And so by linking it to a partnership, it becomes a very, very coherent and easy to explain and define in your application. And so I'm just putting that in there because that was one thing that they didn't put on necessarily on the slides, but it's also why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very much why you're here. So it's, and I think, Tashina, just am I correct to assume that you would still pick one of their awards, but you would pick one that has like a location overlapping with a partnership? Sorry to make you run back and forth.
So they have awards that are very general, and those tend to be very competitive because the more specific the award, the less a number of applications they'll get. And so the hidden gems often are in countries that people don't naturally look at, or topics that are very, 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 very refined. And so those are the ones that you have the highest likelihood to get, okay? And if you go into the really big, vague ones, you better have a really good file. And in that case, if you can have a partnership or some other goals to go with it. The one in Uzbekistan, we're also linking it because the partner is the University of World Economy and Diplomacy. And they do all the diplomat training. So you can see the links with SIS. And so there's a larger project being developed for SIS through this partnership beyond the dual degrees.
You work with emeritus faculty or emeritus status?
Emeritus are also allowed to apply for Fulbright, and happy to work with any emeritus faculty. Yeah. We had that question come in recently, and the answer is yes. Young and old, you can do this. People think that it's only also for senior faculty. It is not necessarily for senior faculty. There are opportunities for junior faculty. Again, there are some that are for teaching beyond the scholars. They actually asked us to encourage people to apply to that one as well. Our students, we are top producers 5 out of 6 years, but they almost all go out on teaching programs and not a lot on research. And so they're really, but on the other way around, our faculty go out on research. And so they're trying to encourage us to all of them. But yeah, the more hidden Jimmy you can get, the more coherent your project is to a larger context, to AU, to government and our own maybe government priorities, the more likely you're going to get it. Again, we have if you don't know where you want to go, we can help you find maybe some of the better options for applications. If you do know where you want to go, maybe we can reach out to the State Department and start the process of communicating, like I like to say. Yeah.
We have a big bonus in having Tashina at AU, actually, just stay here nearby, yeah. Right, so this first step, I'm actually a little bit curious about. Like, you choose the relevant award that best fits your goals. Once we talk to our panelists in a little bit, we're going to ask them that question, like, what was your original goal? But the next step really is much more concrete. You think about what country, what discipline, what type of award. Do you want to do research? Do you want to teach? Do you want to do both? Do you want to go to Italy because of the great pizza? And the next tip here that I think is really important, and I did work with a professor in the literature department this year actually who was considering a distinguished level awards. Before you start applying for a distinguished level award, make sure that you fill all the eligibility. And he did. Actually, I think he ended up winning an award. But it is a lot of work to put in the time into an application. So you really, the best tip is to read every single part of the of the award details before you do anything else.
I had a similar problem to her. I had not been in the United States long enough. I'm a US citizen, but coming from France, I actually have to live in the United States for 3 years, like a certain number of years before you can apply to these. And so I went through almost the entire process before realizing I couldn't finish the application. So please, don't do what I did.
But then you were almost ready for the next year.
That's right.
Did you apply, or is it now the time? Oh, exciting. So we could ask you some questions too about applying.
I applied for specialist.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So again, the hidden gem opportunities. Essentially, we'll show you a website shortly where you basically you'll just you would go to their website and start like browsing through, filtering. And this is maybe what we'll hear from our colleagues here as well. So unless you know of a specific Fulbright already that you want to apply for, you can. It's like going shopping, kind of. You go to just the website and you keep filtering and looking for countries, for topics, for fields, for types of awards, and then when you get further down this funnel here, factor in things like what your personal constraints are. If you really know that you want to bring your family, filter it by family friendly. I believe there's a filter called something like that. And then think about your career stage. Think about when you might have a sabbatical lined up. If you're going for a full year, you might have to negotiate with your department to either move your sabbatical or to find a way, essentially, and this is something we're working on actually to figure out here to create more cohesive supports for that so that we can enable more faculty to go abroad for the full year. For the application itself, I'm not gonna read through all these, but this just kind of shows you the scope of what the application entails. My guess is the project statement and essays is what takes the most time to complete here, and then just depending on so whether it's required or not, I would assume if you're doing a teaching award in a country that is non-English speaking, unless it's an English teacher, that you would need to know the language.
But I'm poor Caroline, she's like, everybody's gonna know all about her when she gets back. But she had put, I'm not that good in Spanish. I did Spanish in college, but she was the strongest in terms of expertise. And they made the decision to go with her and kind of like give a boost. And so you don't necessarily need to be fluent or bilingual. And again, it's been an adventure for her to get back and do all of that in Spanish. But now there are tools with AI that do help us. We might hate AI, but there are some positive parts to it. But just don't be afraid if there is a requirement and say your Spanish is not that great, you can still try for something. We have proof that it actually does work. So, and we had one of our Fulbrighters 2 years ago in France did not speak French at all. And she went to a French university that doesn't really speak English, but they still took her. It's our friend from, oh my gosh, CS, she's a sociology. Yeah. Yeah, she went with her family, and now I think they might be going back because they've been giving her a bunch of grant money to come back and do some research. So she's going to take a couple of years and do that. So yeah.
So that's another thing actually that an award might do. It might give you further opportunities to come back if you made a good impression. So I have a question in the back here. Oh, would you mind asking it in the microphone so that we can capture it on video?
Do you have a rubric for the scoring of applications? Is it available on Fulbright?
So I doubt that they have that because it's actually every like home institution, right? Am I correct about that, Tishin? Do you happen to know, to remember? I think the home institutions are the ones who evaluate the first round. In fact, I think the next slide after this one shows the different. Yeah. So, good question. I will reach out to the Fulbright folks and find an answer.
And you can actually build it with the home institution. And this is what we're doing with Rob Kelly, is we're working with the partner to build his application so that it will get it.
All right, so some tips from the Fulbright folks here. I mentioned it earlier. Read, they call it all 4 tabs. I guess there are 4 tabs, but just read all the details before you start like writing an application, just to make sure that you're not ineligible. Start as soon as you can. I mean, now is still a very good time, I think, to start building this for the fall. And then use all the resources available on the Fulbright Scholars website. So the webinars are like live and then also recorded. I'm going to find the one from last week and share a link with all of you if you're interested in that hidden gem webinar, because I think that you know it's a good one just to be able to find an award that might actually fit you really well and still not be very competitive. And then read the guides on the website. So it could very well be that some of those, you know, the specific award information includes something that approximates a rubric in terms of what they're looking for, and you basically want to
Check all the boxes.
Right. Check all boxes. So the timeline. We are now in you know the application window, and then there are all these different steps. So if you end up applying this year, sometime in a year from now, a little over a year from now, you would start. Actually, in December, you would start finding out, getting notifications. So I think that's the window we're in right now. We're hearing here and there from folks here at AU actually who have won Fulbrights for the next cycle. And then pretty soon after that, you would be preparing for departure. All right, so this last slide I included just because I'm going to share the slides later. So this is the link you would go to and then start browsing through awards and using the filter just to sort of, you know, I would say spend a lot of time on this. Make notes, save links to awards that you're interested in, and create a short list. And just like I think it's worth the time at the beginning of just really finding the right fit for you, for all the time you will invest then later on in the application itself. And I don't know if there's anything else right now. Any more questions? Any comments?
I'm just going to add that beyond Fulbright, there are other types of fellowships. And if Fulbright is not the fit for you, for maybe whatever eligibility reason, or you didn't find your happiness, we can sit down and see if there are any others that we could talk about. There are some that even CFE works with, but as again, like the French have a few, there's some new ones. There's a lot of different mechanisms within Europe, Asia, other countries who'd love, and every single partner is like, we'd love visiting faculty. We'd love you to send us faculty. And so there's even some of our partners who are willing to fund it themselves. So there are other options if you do not get your Fulbright, if it's not the right award for you, just putting that out there, because again, if you were like me, coming from France and didn't qualify to apply as I wanted to go on an administrator's, I think, tour. I guess it was too international to do it. So, but now I can't. Now you can. But anyways, and if you don't get it one year, try again. Again, it's like, you know.
So I'm actually going to swap the order since you brought this up, because I was going to spend the last 5 minutes of the session introducing a resource that has been reintroduced to the center's portfolio, I guess. So under our former director, Naomi Barron, in I think 2016, a fellowships database was created with about 80 fellowships, including Fulbright, as counting as one in that sense, and then all these other fellowships. And we have relaunched it, updated it for this year. And you can find it by going to the CFE website to, let's see, career planning. And I'm going to just see if I can get this without it. It's career planning, faculty fellowships opportunities. Here we go. And so on this website, you can see all fellowships. You can browse by general area or look at all of them. You can look for early career opportunities. You can look for sabbatical funding. You can look for travel and residency, which I think is the most common one, and you'll find Fulbright in here somewhere. So all of these, they should have links. Where are the links? I have to make sure. Yeah, yes. So here are the links essentially. So this is another place to go if you want to, because you can only apply for one Fulbright, but you can also apply for a bunch of other fellowships at the same time. You might be putting together the same kinds of materials. And then the other thing we want to do with this, actually there's also a tips for applicants page put together by a few faculty. This was a couple of years ago, but they have endorsed this, is still valid, where they talk a bit about some of the important questions to think about when you select and plan to apply for a fellowship. And then one of the things that I really would like to do to sort of take this project to where it was originally intended to go is to really create a network of previous winners of all of these awards, really. So we're going to start a research project of trying to figure out also who at AU have won a fellowship of any kind before they came to AU. I actually just learned this morning of a Fulbright alum who got his Fulbright before he came to AU, so he's not listed in the directory as an AU Fulbright. But that is a network that I'd love to build out so that we can provide more resources and mentoring to faculty who are interested in going somewhere. You can come, have coffee with somebody at AU who's won this fellowship. That's, I think, the best way to get the information that will most help you become a winner of that award.
And vice versa, if you know somebody who is on a Fulbright to the United States and you would like to invite them to AU, there's special funding for that nobody seems to apply for. So if you look, there's a list of actual scholars on IIE's website. They love to give their Fulbright scholars, so the foreign scholars coming to the United States, opportunities to go to different universities. Maybe there's somebody who is an expert in a certain field and you'd love to have them do a talk for your students. There is funding for that too. So it goes both ways. If you also would like to bring, as we said, that internationalization of your curriculum, maybe you have a conference, maybe, etc. You can always scroll that and you might find people you know or who interest you intellectually.
All right, so with that, we are actually now going to turn to our three faculty panelists. And I want to introduce them one at a time really briefly. So these are three AU faculty members who have been Fulbright US scholars in the more or less recent past. So to start with Mike Alonso on the far right from the Department of Environmental Science, who spent his Fulbright year in Argentina in 2024-2025. And then in the middle, we have Boaz Atzili from the Department of Foreign Policy and Global Security at SIS, who spent his Fulbright year in India in 2022-2023, and Stephen Taylor here on the left, on my left, from the Department of Government, who spent his Fulbright year in Ghana in 2015-2016. So I'm going to ask each of you to share briefly, since we lost two panelists last minute. You have a little more time, so maybe up to 10 minutes each. It can also be less to give more time for questions. To talk about what your journey looked like. So from first considering, then applying, and then completing your Fulbright Scholar time abroad. And can you share also what the most rewarding and the most challenging parts of your time abroad was? So let's start with you, Mike.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Sorry, what was the first question?
Didn't pay attention, did you? The first question, well, generally, just share what your journey looked like. So,
Okay.
The whole journey from the first idea to going away.
So mine is fairly personally motivated, I guess. And it was just, I was coming up on sabbatical or, get tenure, get sabbatical. And then just the long-term goal was take family to live in South America. And so that was probably going to happen no matter what, because honestly, the main financial impediment to that was not so much Fulbright, no Fulbright. It was, can we rent out our house or can we not rent out our house? And so we were able to do that. And so we were going to go. But of course, Fulbright offers a lot in addition, some money, the imprimatur of official participation in a project, and a great way to connect with people and have a project, have an office to go to, have some, day-to-day meaning that's not just continuing to do my other work from an apartment or something. So that was the motivation. I have had a 9-year-old son and my wife, and they were, more or less agreed to this situation. And so I started reaching out. I have no connections in South America, by the way, even though I did my study abroad in Chile in college, but no connections down there. And I just started emailing to basically like a list. I would go look at some universities that seemed relevant in Buenos Aires. And then I would start just emailing people to be like, hey, you do stuff that is interesting, like, ecology, various ecology people. And one woman wrote me back. She was a wetland ecologist and said like, oh, I'm interested in maybe working together. So I do remote sensing. So it's like using satellite or drone or airborne imagery to monitor global change at high resolution. And so mostly I work in urban areas, but like it's satellite data, so it's kind of transferable to other settings also. So I'm kind of a tools guy and can plug into a lot of different projects. And so she was very nice and interested in talking to me. And so this was in March of 2023. And that's where the real work started, right? It was like the administrative stuff is a piece of it, but really it's defining what your project is and what you're gonna do down there. I would say one piece that brings up in my mind that was at least important to consider for me for Argentina was just like and goes to the rubric question a little bit of like what is your research versus teaching allocation going to be? That can be defined by you in most cases, I think, percentage-wise, but it should align with what your country wants from you, what Argentina is into. And so I thought I would be going down and doing more research than teaching and was going to say 70-30 research teaching, but I kind of got wind through some folks at IIE or whatever that is that are like, I think they want more on the teaching side of things. And so we flipped it and did a 70-30 teaching research. And what you do once you get there, like that can be variable also, but it was helping to check the boxes that the Argentina team was looking for. So yeah, we worked together, spun up a plausible project that made good collaboration between us, had some field work, involved some students. It was like going and visiting, making measurements in a national park in the Paraná River in Argentina. And we also developed a short course. So that's kind of one way to, check the box for the teaching in a way that is appealing to them and maybe to you. Because to me, it was like, okay, I don't have to be on campus every week at 2:30 p.m. for an hour and a half and therefore not be able to travel and enjoy other stuff. It's like focus all of the work into one 30-hour week of classroom time. And that both allowed students to come in and have it not be for credit, just for learning remote sensing stuff, and made it better for me to just condense it into a small period of time. So that was rewarding too. It was a remote sensing short course, had like 16 students enrolled. I did that. I guess it was sort of billed as it was going to be in English, but that didn't happen. It was really in Spanish. And so that was, I guess, one of our broad family challenges was that Argentina, and we knew this going in, is not a place where there's a ton of English speaking compared to, some other Latin American countries and European countries. And so the language was important. For me, it was a rewarding part of it because I was okay at Spanish before. It was just rusty. And this helped me get it back into shape. And I think this is somewhat universally true, is that professional Spanish is fairly easy because a lot of the words are long and sound like English words. And maybe more importantly, I know the boundaries of what we're talking about. I know the context. I know what people are probably going to say. So I can do, be like a large language model and just kind of predict the next word. So that all worked out well. Once you get into the lunchroom and there's the freewheeling conversation, that was, I don't know, had like 30% comprehension there. Should I be talking about the experience or more the application?
A little bit of both, if you
Okay.
can.
Yeah, I think the application was just fairly smooth. Argentina had an optional language language test requirement. I did it. It seemed like, you should probably just do it if you can, if you feel like you can get a decent score on it. Probably helps out your case, especially if I'm going to have to be realistically doing a lot of the day-to-day in Spanish. I would say give yourself a lot of time. Like, this was kind of a stereotypical Latin American pace of interaction with my collaborator. Just the back and forth just took a while, and so she was into it the whole time, but like I was getting a little nervous. I was like, oh my God, she's not replying for like 3 weeks. She was like, oh, I was in the Amazon for 3 weeks. Sorry about that. I was like, oh man, I just almost applied to a different program in Belgium because I thought we were done. So give yourself plenty of time to get that collaboration going. Yeah, I ended up delaying. I was, first of all, I did a 3-month. I was applying for 3-month because that was the maximum that they have in Argentina, and ended up delaying a bit for just family reasons. And so I think that's a possibility as well. No one seemed to mind that at all. We ended up going down, so mid-January 2025 through 6 months, July 2025. And so we were there for 6 months, but only on Fulbright for 3 months. But that also was not, I kept working at the university because you're just like showing up as this unpaid guy who's kind of doing stuff for them. And so they didn't mind. You just signed some insurance forms to be on campus and then go about your business, at least, in this case. I don't know if that's transferable. The bringing the family was challenging, but positive. My kid did monolingual Spanish stuff up until the age of 5, and I was applying when he was 7, and we're like, oh, he knows Spanish, cool, won't be a problem. But by the time we got down there, he was 9 and like didn't know Spanish anymore. So we kind of misjudged how that was going to be, and it was very stressful to see where he was going to go to school, because we thought we'll send him to an international school, which is going to be all Argentine kids. It'll be supposedly half English, half Spanish. The reality is all the informal stuff is in Spanish. We had to do a 2-hour Zoom interview that was going to be in Spanish with him, and that was the end of that. He couldn't do that. So that turned into both positive and negative. We ended up putting him into the international school, kind of the diplomat-y school where all the international kids go, which was amazing and probably the most important success of the whole trip there, because he made friends, he got back into the Spanish. They had amazing after-school activities, so he was gone having a good time for 10 hours a day. But on the other hand, we were not getting paid by the State Department in any real way, or by, Coca-Cola International. And so self-funding that school was rough. So that was the biggest outlay of the whole trip. My wife, the good part about being in Argentina was that it's only an hour time zone difference from here. So she just kept working as a digital strategy consultant. The bad part is she does political advertising, and post Russia and Trump, you can't place Facebook ads from abroad. And so that was a challenge that she ran into, that we had to work with. But more importantly, she learned that her Spanish wasn't good enough to kind of have a social life for this awkward period of time. So I think that's something also to consider, is what are you expecting out of your time there? If you're just there somewhere for 3 months, you're almost just like a tourist. 6 months with a family is sort of this middle ground of like you're kind of a tourist, but you're not going to travel all the time. And so, who are you gonna be friends with? What language are you gonna speak with them? We did have both Argentine and expat friends, but that was sometimes hard for those weekends where we were just kind of in Buenos Aires on a Sunday where nothing was open, and we didn't know what to do with ourselves. So all in all, it worked out. Son liked it. I had a great time. My wife, so on that. I'll turn it over for now, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Do you want to come up to the computer? So Boaz has some, I think, photos or slides to share. So let's.
Okay. Hello, my name is Boaz Atzili. I'm from Department of Foreign Policy and Global Security in SIS. And I was on a Fulbright Narrow Academic and Professional Excellence Award 2022-23. My award was the kind that you mentioned, the Flex Award, how they call it in Fulbright. That is, I divided it into two parts. So I was there in fall of 22 for 3 months, and then again in the summer of 23 for 2 months. And so I have a few slides, mostly to show you some pretty pictures that I took during the Fulbright. The first one is not my picture, but the title of this session is Taking the Career in a New Direction. And I think that's exactly what I used my Fulbright fellowship to do. My area expertise is borders and borderlands, territorial conflicts, territorial peace, all this stuff. But the focus of most of my work until then was Middle East. So I was trying to use the Fulbright to shift geographic focus from the Middle East to the Indian Himalayas, and in specifically to the Indian-Chinese border at the Himalayas. So I thought that it's a Fulbright idea. That's a bad dad joke, to use the Fulbright for that. So a few words, I would say, about the application and the Fulbright itself. So a couple of things that I think is important to know for the application. One of them, Anna already mentioned, is that it takes a long time. It's a long process, and you have to kind of follow the schedule. And I think in my case, I submitted the application in September of 2021 and got the award in, I believe it was perhaps April or May of 2022. And it takes a long time, and it's a lot of iteration and all the process. Second really important stuff is to keep in mind your audience. And there are 3 kinds of audience, or actually 4 kinds of audience when you write a Fulbright application. One of them is the academic peer review, which is, what I don't remember, I think for sure you have an academic peer review committee in your country of destination that look at your file. I can't remember if there's a academic peer review committee here in the US that does it before. But basically there, you all know what to do. They evaluate based on your merit of your research project. And mine was purely research, no teaching. So they evaluate you based on the merit, based on also what they need, etc. The second class of audiences is the US government. When I applied in 2021, that wasn't much of a deal because it was 2021. And basically the US government accepted what the academic professionals said, that these are good files, good applications, and then that's fine. That's not the case anymore now, right? So I think the funding is back, but there are significant oversight by the U.S. government, and I think it's not so much the professional people at Fulbright or at IIE, which one of them, by the way, used to work in two of them. Julie Taylor, I know, used to work in SIS, and she's a really good connector to AU. But it's not them, it's the people at the top, the political appointees from the government. So that means that you need to, if you file your application, you need to think carefully about what you write. So, of course, like, you know, some topics, that's not a problem. If your field is, I don't know, chemistry, I don't believe that there's too much politics in that. But some of them, of course, are a lot of problem with the ideology of the administration. But I think that in many cases, you can write the same thing in a different way. So don't write global warming, right? That would not pass. But there's different ways to write the same project and the same topic that you want to research in a way that will not put up all the red flags in the American administration. And then once you get the award and you go to wherever you go to, nobody actually looks at what you do in the field. You can do your research as you like. But that's really important. And then there's the host state government as well. So you need to be aware of sensitivities in the host country and what they look at. So in my case, I wanted to go to India to study the border of India and China. Conflict with India and China, that's extremely sensitive topic there. So that means I had to also be careful about what I'm saying. And since some of my project is about relation between what's happened on the border between the two states and what happened between the population of the borderland to the center of their country. So I made that second part the kind of focus of the application so that this would not raise too many red flags in India as well. But nevertheless, that still was an issue, and I told you that this was a flex time. So first time, no problem. Second time, my visa was delayed for 2 months because we have to go through back and forth with the Indian government about the details of my research plan. They were very nervous, and that's despite the fact that you get the okay from Fulbright before, because the people that give you the visa are not the same people that give you the okay for the Fulbright. So these are Fulbright is by the Foreign Office, and the visa you get by the, I think, Minister of Interior, and they are still in the mindset of the Cold War, and the Americans are all spies and enemies. So that was a bit complicated. But wherever you go, make sure that you aware of the sensitivities of the government that you go to. One last point about the application. So in my case, in India, they did not require that you have a sponsorship from a local institution. But in many places, they do require that. And I think that it's a really good idea, even if you are not required to have a local sponsorship, like Mike said, to get connection in a local institution, university. I find that it helped me a lot in doing the research. It provided me with collaborative people to collaborate with on the research, and that was really good. And I think that also gave me some points for the application in Fulbright. A few things about doing the Fulbright. So you kind of ask about the challenges and the rewards. So in terms of challenges, expect complications. I mean, it depends on where you go, right? I'm guessing that if you go to Germany, we might not have so many complications. Everything is very organized. But in many parts of the world, expect complications. Expect that things will take much longer than you think. So, for example, you mentioned the emails exchange. So I have a lot of, first of all, Indians just don't answer emails, period. If you try WhatsApp, there's a better chance that they will answer. But basically, it's you need to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and then you get the connections, and that takes much more time than you expect. So everything in research takes much more time. Bureaucracy was a big challenge, and that's like the story of the visa. For example, I had my suitcase packed up and ready to go in like late April, but the visa was delayed and delayed and delayed. Eventually, in like early June, I told my wife, okay, I'm probably not going anywhere. I put everything back in the closet, the clothes and everything. The next day I got the visa. But eventually I got there, but there's a lot of bureaucracy also in the country. As a Fulbright scholar and other stuff, for example, one of the things that I was doing in my research, I was working in the archives in Delhi, and it took just forever to get the permission to get into the archive, and then a couple of more weeks to get permission to have access to certain files in the archives, and everything just takes a very long time. And then there's the host university bureaucracy. So I was affiliated with Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. It's one of the top universities in India. But if you think that AU bureaucracy is bad, it's not in comparison. So just to get the basic stuff organized there, it took such a long time. And then there's life complications. So for instance, in my case, in the first week after getting into Delhi, I got COVID. And at the time, I had to stay for 10 days in quarantine in a country that I don't know anybody, and that was not fun. But the Fulbright office in Delhi, and they have in most countries their office, were extremely helpful. and they really help in getting through this hurdle. But yeah, I expect a lot of things not to go as planned, and just bank time for that and plan for that. In terms of rewards, first of all, I mean, that was amazing reward for me this year, this month in India. I, I've been in India before, but as a tourist, and this time being there as a researcher, that's very different, and for a long time, and that kind of was um, eye-opening experience for me, really learning a new word. It also gave me time to think that sometimes when you're definitely when you're here and you need to teach and all that, but even if you're in sabbatical and you're sitting at home and there's all these to-do things you can't do, but when you're away, and in my case by myself, for a long time. That's a great opportunity to think. And if you can be away in these beautiful places that in the pictures, that's even better. Um, uh, uh, Collaboration opportunities, I had a lot of them, so including giving talks in I think 4 universities in India, and one conference, collaborating on research articles with local scholars, both from Delhi and from Ladakh in the Himalayas. So that's a great opportunity, and I learn a lot from them. Again, collaborating is sometimes challenging because they have their own pace, and they don't necessarily work in the same way that we do. And making new friends, like these group of ladies that I met in a village in Himachal Pradesh near the border with China, and they invited me to a wedding at the village, a Tibetan wedding. The population there is Tibetan. That was a lot of fun, except for that the alcohol they drink is just terrible taste. And they kind of forced me to do that. but part of the experience. So, so, so thank you.
I was wondering why we had an uptick in reputation boost from India in his field, because I was looking at some of the data that we had we just QS ranking in political science, international relations, international development. We hit the top 50, and I was looking at where they were coming from, and I'm like, India. So yes, I've been developing a bunch of partnerships in India, but I'm like, and now actually, I would put money down on some of those come from you. There are scholars that worked with you at some point, because the Indians are really big on the ranking and pushing people to do ranking, just pushing alcohol on you too. But I thank you very much, because I think you're one of the reasons that you guys hit top 50. Yeah.
They knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew Boaz.
Exactly. Yeah, but like, you do research with people, they saw you at a conference or something, and when they answer the questionnaire, they say, American University.
So we have about 14 minutes left. I'm going to devote 10 of those to you. Steve, do you want to go next?
I'm just stuck with just 10 minutes. I guess
Oh, you
that's
can get more. You
that's
can
the
get more.
disadvantage of coming last.
We'll keep with...
But anyway, my experience was in Ghana. It was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, right now, I was concluding my experience. I was there for the spring semester of 2016. But it goes back much further than that. As far as my experience with Fulbright in Ghana, I first initially attempted several years earlier to do a Fulbright in Ghana. I had when I went in 2016. That was my 9th trip to Ghana. My first trip was in 1998, because I had some ideas about things I wanted to do, and I was a junior professor here. I was not tenured, just getting started somewhat, and so I wanted to do some research on. I'm a political scientist, so I want to look at political culture in Ghana and see if there's some continuity with African American political culture. I was looking at some of the works of anthropologist Melville Herskovitz, and and some political scientists in the United States that I was looking at. Uh, but but what so I went in '98. I said, yeah, this is something I want to do, and I started the process after I was there in the spring of '98. I started the process of applying. I started coming up with the idea to go there for the 99 2000 year, and so I applied and went through that lengthy process, and I was really happy with the application I put through, but then at the end, it didn't go through for me, and they asked me, would I be interested in going to Nigeria? I said certainly, but then I never heard from them again. After they asked me that, they never even responded to me for that. So then but see, this is where the advantage of being at American University, because I had the project in mind, and back in those days, I don't know if this is the case now, but what SPA was doing with junior professors was giving them summer research grants, and I used that to go to Ghana in the summer of '99, and fortunately, somebody who was in Ghana with the foreign ministry, he was able to he had me stay with him and his sister in their apartment. So I had housing taken care of, and and it was an ethnographic research where I was interviewing people. And then I also, the following summer, I came back using that same type of grant and meanwhile, I had gone in the spring of '99, the spring of 2000, but I went back in 2000, and I finished up the project, and it resulted in me getting a couple of publications in refereed journals. So, and then I went back to present some of my research in Ghana when it was the 50th anniversary of their independence in 2007. I went to a conference there. I presented. Then I presented in 2009, and it's another advantage of being at AU is at that time they had students that were studying abroad there at two different universities there, University of Ghana in Legon, just outside of Accra, and Ashesi University in Accra. So they were considering whether they were going to continue that program and wanted a report from a faculty member on how the AU abroad wanted a report to find out whether it's worthwhile, which I thought it was. So they funded me to go back in 2009 during the time I went to the conference, and I met with the AU students who were there, talked with them extensively, talked with administrators at both universities, and wrote up an extensive report recommending that they keep that program. I guess I must not have done a good job of recommending it because they don't have that program any longer. But then I came up with another idea of some research that I wanted to do. Because Ghana has the largest African American expatriate community that live of any of the countries in Africa. So I wanted to look at the political proclivities of African American expatriates in Ghana, both here when they were in the United States and in Ghana. So I first went there, and this is what's important to do, as was brought up by other people, is get some connection with the university there. I went to the university, met with the political science department, befriended the department chair, and he said, I will write whatever recommendation I can to sponsor for you to come back. So that was in the summer of 2014. So I did that, and I started the process of applying. And this time the application came through positively for me, and I was able to do my first sabbatical there. So I did one semester there, as I said earlier. Now, and it was a teaching and research. So I taught at the University of Ghana. I taught a class, and then I was also doing my research, doing interviews, going to different communities where African American expatriates lived there, and joined an organization and got very active in that organization. But I think what was one thing that if you're going to go abroad, if you're in the capital city of that country, make use of the embassy, and I did. They got to know me well. I was there every weekday. I was there 7 days a week, actually, but I was in the offices every weekday. But I used their swimming pool. I would swim there every day, and I would then after swimming, I would dry off. Then I would go and use their computer lab and in contact with people here and check my email. Then email my students there, telling them when assignments were due or something like that. So that's so the embassy was good. I met a lot of people who were very helpful throughout that time, and it made me just feel like in a lot of ways, that it made me less homesick being the embassy. And um, but now, as far as challenges, the challenges of being there, it's not a well-to-do country. It's a developing country. It's a poor country, and people assume that those of us from more developed countries, have money. They don't realize that I work at American University, so I don't have money. I don't have much. But that they didn't understand, and at first they could tell I was a tourist, probably because even though I'm black like the majority of people, I wasn't the same complexion. But after a couple weeks of swimming every day, I was. And then I figured out how to keep people from stopping me on the streets asking me for money. What I learned how to do was to carry packages on my head. And so people didn't know I was a tourist then, because I was walking down the street carrying my gym bag or whatever on my head. And so that bothered me a lot, that the poverty there in a lot of developing countries, that people feel that they have to. That's how people make a living sometimes, is trying to get help from other people. And I think another challenge was they had a house called the Fulbright House. There were 4 of us Fulbrights there at the same time, who were faculty members, in addition to students rather. But the 4 faculty members, they put us in the Fulbright House. And in that Fulbright House, it's faculty housing, but I tell you, I felt like I was living in a tenement. Peeling paint, mildew, leaks. So that wasn't, which I wasn't. It wasn't unexpected, because I've been to Ghana 9 times, and I knew what to expect. But I remember one time we were 28 hours without electricity. Good thing I wasn't keeping too much food in my refrigerator, because it would have all been gone. But so that, yeah. Oh, thank you. That was so that was probably one of the more difficult times I had, just getting adjusted to that, and the corrosion around, and just the conditions of it. But and I think the best experience I had was that we had almost 3 weeks to a month almost between the last class and the final. So I had all this downtime. So what did I do? I came back here and went to graduation, watched my students graduate. And that's not supposed to be the best time you had, but it was. It was good. And then I went back. I had a couple more weeks left, and I went back and gave my final. Then I still had some time left, and was able to do a little bit of sightseeing, but a lot of sites I'd already seen. And my father was still alive back then, so he came, and he was there for so we flew back together. But as I said, the application process is daunting. But what helped me was the fact that I had somebody on the campus who was the department chair. I made friends with him, and that hurt some relationship I had with another political scientist, because another person didn't do all that, but got accepted, but not in the political science department. So I think she was a little bit miffed with me that she had all this faculty experience that I didn't have, and I'm the one who got the appointment with the department. But those are the breaks. So. But it was, that was that summarizes my experiences there at the University of Ghana, and in Ghana as a Fulbright. But as I said, and I'll just tell just one little humorous story. I know I'm going over time, but I met with that faculty member. I got to be friends with the department chair. So it was the summer before I was to go to Ghana, and I got a letter from him. He's telling me, I was traveling. I'm in the Philippines doing travel, and I got robbed, and I lost all my money. Can you help me out? And I said, before I help do any such thing, I got to make sure you're you. So can you reiterate any conversation that I had with you? So he talked about it. He said, well, you told me you were glad that you were going to be there during the wintertime and avoid the winter, because I love hot weather. And I did actually. I remember telling him that. So I said, okay. So I sent him some money. He said, I need more. So I went and I sent him more, but I made a mistake on the Western Union gram, and one of the numbers was incorrect. So it got sent back to me. So then I thought, I think I'm being scammed. I don't think that he would just ask me for money. So I said, but how does he know that I talked about the weather? Well, I looked at emails that I had sent him, and I said that in an email. Said somebody hacked into his email. So I went to, and I canceled that, and actually the person hadn't picked up the first MoneyGram that I sent. So it all came back to me. So in a way, that was a bad experience, was a good experience. I got my money back. And then the person wrote back to me and said, I'm waiting for the money. And I started to tell him where he could go, and I don't mean heaven. Then I called up to my friend, and I told him, he said, well, you know, my Yahoo account was canceled because they said it got hacked by some people. I said, yeah, and they told me that you were stranded in the Philippines. He said, well, if that happened, I'd be asking a relative for money. I wouldn't have been calling you. But fortunately, those are the things happen. So that can happen here too. As a matter of fact, just the other day, somebody tried to buy something with Sam's Club on my credit card, but my bank wouldn't allow them to do it. So that happens in both countries. So that's all I've got to say. So.
Thank you so much, Steve. And thanks to all of you too, Tashina. And we are at time. So I don't know if you have 3 minutes to stay. Maybe if anyone has any specific question, you can come up. And if you want to give us some feedback, you can use this QR code, or you will receive an email later this evening with a short survey. But thank you so much for coming, and good luck with your applications if you're thinking about going.